I really love how they make these first episodes about Amanda's mother. Even though she left the family when Amanda was still an infant child, I think she had a big impact on her, even if only for her absence. Though I know the whole story, I still enjoy those happy flashbacks. I do not think she was a bad mother. She did the best she could do, and with manic depression it is very much that way. You have those highs in which everything is sunny and good and you enjoy yourself and the company of others. But when you are down in the depressed or even worse in the psychotic phase, you cannot think clearly. Those mood swings are, even for an adult, hard to handle, but for a child who does not understand what is going on, it must have been like hell. Maybe even little Amanda thought it was her fault when her mother behaved in that way. I never felt comfortable with that storyline and the later assumptions that Emily inherited her mother's mental illness. Should that be an explanation for her revenge and her anger issues? What is the message here? If you try to fight back and get even with the people who harmed you and your family, you're just crazy. And did Amanda not got through enough in her childhood and adolescence? Losing her dad only 8 or 9 years old, getting abused by her stepmother, going to prison and living on the streets. Now she has a psychotic mother, spoiler alert, who tried to drown her. That was too much for one life and for me to stomach. About Emily using Daniel and Charlotte. I do not like that she is helping Charlotte just for her purpose to get close to Victoria again. Is Emily not at least a little bit concerned about Charlotte's safety or her recovery? And that she is using Daniel is such an overused trope in this season. Like an actual dog, Daniel is doing everything Emily says in this part of the show. About Aiden again. Though I cannot wait seeing them back together, I enjoyed how they dosed his appearance in the first quarter of season 2. It makes his objections and the relationship to Emily even more vague and open for questions. And as we see later, there is a reason for his reluctance. It is for safety reasons. Cause Emily is not that happy about Aiden being back. About Charlotte's presumably failed recovery. It seems as if they are really going through with this. First Amanda's mother being psychotic, then Emily, and now Charlotte having a mental breakdown. I would have understood if they questioned those views in a conversation. Or at least with some remarks of Emily's friends or Charlotte's family. However, they really opened the box of Pandora here. So that anything the three, and if you count Fauxmanda in the 4 women, are doing to defend themselves or take life in their own hands, is just a manifestation of their mental disorder. I cannot believe this worldview would withhold these times. And I must admit I disliked it back then already very much. About Emily's plan to separate Victoria and Charlotte. I know Emily is still furious about what Victoria did to her, her father and her mother. But that she is using Charlotte and Fauxmanda in this way is just inexcusable. How could she ever think Charlotte would forgive her if she learns the truth? And after knowing what Charlotte has been through in the last month, does it never occur to Emily that her recovery was in jeopardy here? When she separates Charlotte from the one person that helped her get through this time? We have not seen her struggle and how Victoria was helpful, but it seems as if Charlotte clung to her since she had no one else to cling to. About NolCorp and Padma. As I said in the episode before, I liked that they broadened Nolan's storyline and brought in new faces. I loved his relationship with Padma. Not only because she was the first woman Nolan dated on the show. I liked the presence of the actress, and she was also the first love interest of Nolan that did not screw him over. After Tyler, Nolan needed someone innocent and more stable in his life. The only disadvantage is that she was his employee, so you can say she was in some kind depending on him. How can you say no to your boss? Spoiler alert. And that whole storyline about her being blackmailed to get close to him made their relationship really complicated. Too bad that Nolan never did get an easy relationship where he just could have been happy. Anyway, I like that they actually show him running his company. Must have been a running gag behind the scenes, that Nolan has to take care of some big business, and is never actually seen working in an office. So I was happy that they actually showed him doing things which you would expect of a company owner. Holding meetings and yelling at employees. Though I like that Padma can withstand an argument with him and is naturally funny. With Nolan's humour, he needs someone who enjoys witty comments as much as he does, and that he talks with his employees without even wearing pants with just hilarious. The joke was really predictive if you think about the pandemic with home office and video calls. Referring to himself as a control freak shows Emily's influence and how they grow into a family. I really enjoyed their relationship in season 2 because they were as thick as brother and sister. Sometimes Nolan was the big brother who tried to talk sense into his younger sister and prevent her from doing something stupid. And Emily was like the younger sister who does not understand why her brother is still living in their house and has still none apartment of his own, and thinks what the hell he is talking about, like in this funny scene. The only thing I did not like in season 2 that he was always the one who should do the boring work like monitoring Victoria. I know Nolan brought himself into this position because in season 1 he desperately wanted to be part of her agenda and was always there for her. Even when Emily does not wanted him to be there. But pretty much like Aiden later, she just uses him to do the things she has not the time for or just does not want to do. So again, our heroine has not that much changed how she manipulates and uses people for her own advantage. About the pregnancy test. This whole plot was something I did not like at all. I know Jack would have been stupid if he would not try to be sure that this baby is truly his because Fauxmanda was so long away. And that was not only a monetary question because Amanda lied to him about important things before. But what I really dislike is Emily's reaction that Fauxmanda wants her to alternate a result that is not in her favor. And even for Emily it is despicable that she lies to Fauxmanda about the results, and tells her that she actually had to alter the results in her favor. I know she does this out of jealousy because she is all alone while Fauxmanda seems to get everything she wants for her life, her childhood love, Jack, and a family of her own. It is even worse that she puts the weight of this lie on Fauxmanda, who has to believe that she is now living not only one but 2 lies. And all for the sake of Emily, who really screws her over with this again. Anyway, I like it more when Emily finally accepts the relationship of Fauxmanda and Jack, but it is no coincidence that Emily does it when she is back together with Aiden. About Conrad's office. I never noticed it before, but they have some nice little hints to Japan in here with that big vase. And also a reference to Conrad's big ego with that marble obelisk that looks a lot like a phallus symbol. What I forgot to mention, Charlotte's doctor is in the same way slimy and despicable as Conrad. That he helps people with money like the Graysons to keep their children or other family members in rehab, like in custody, in order to get a lot of money for his services. I cannot find the right words for these. Those are vulnerable and troubled people with many problems. And he takes advantage of the fragile state their and their families are in. It is a shame that this was only a side plot that Emily solved in passing. This storyline of Charlotte had the potential to show us some real issues. About Conrad's role, I think they managed pretty well to show him doing everything to save his company. Grayson Global, his reputation and Victoria, means the world to him, and from the beginning Conrad is determined to do everything in his power to keep those things. Even in the flashbacks and with the framing of David Clarke, his goal was always to save his company and keep the Grayson name out of harm. So it was a fitting revenge in season 3 not only to get him in jail but publicly humiliated at court and before the media. About Ashley, as I said before, I really like how her style improved. She really looks accomplished here with this red dress in classic style. I think an alternate version in grey was worn by Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, Prince William's wife and future Queen of England. So more sharp and classy Ashley cannot become. What I do not like, but is fitting for her character, that she spies on Daniel for Conrad. Ashley just switched teams and targets. Instead of Victoria, who was plotting against Emily with the information and help of Ashley. Ashley is now helping Conrad to keep his son in check. Thought it is not that kind. I enjoyed Conrad's funny question if Daniel used a calculator or his fingers. Really shows us what Conrad thinks of his son. For him, Daniel is still a child. And it underlines the prejudices towards Daniel from the audience side. In many regards, Daniel is some kind of a joke in season 2. First of all, because Emily can manipulate him still that easily and plays him like a violin. And second, because Daniel seems to be constantly in danger and has to be saved either by his parents or by Emily from the initiative. While he seems to have no clue about what is really going on behind his back, since he is drinking in almost every scene. By the way, here is one thing that I did not quite enjoy about season 2. I know that Grayson Global is an investment firm and they had to show us in some way how it works. I did not like how that turned out. In season 1, with the competition between Tyler and Daniel and Takeda's first appearance, it was fun to see a party and investor meeting. But the whole coup with Daniel taking over his father's business and working for the initiative was just so dull to me. Though I would have liked to see Emily take down Charlotte's doctor the old-fashioned way. I love this hero moment of Daniel. He finally stands up for his sister and helps her not only out of this prison-like situation but tries to get her money back as well. About Charlotte's cable-knit sweater. I am noticing this just now, but Charlotte is wearing the same sweater I saw Emily wore before in the pilot episode. It is one of my favorite items because Emily wears it a lot when is together with Aiden and it looks just so comfortable. Anyway, a nice and subtle connection between the two sisters. I am torn about Charlotte's accusations towards Daniel. In a way she is right because he did not help her, though she needed his help desperately throughout this whole time. And it seems to me that he did not take the time either to visit her in rehab. On the other side, Daniel has many problems of his own, not at least his issue with alcohol, so I doubt that he was in the right state of mind to help anyone. Emily saving the situation was just nice to see. And his whispered thank you was just brilliant. They still have some connection, at least for Daniel. So again, I think if Daniel would have become a part of Team Emily, they would have stood a chance. Anyway, Emily using Charlotte in her war against Victoria was something that I hated the most in season 2. Emily knows exactly how fragile and hurt Charlotte is right now, and instead of helping her sister to go through with her addiction and all the other problems of a teenager, she is using her in the relationship and trust that has grown between them to play with her. That was possibly the greatest crime and failure Emily did in order to take revenge. The tensions between the two Porter boys was again something I disliked in season 2. I know Declan has a tendency to get himself in trouble, and it was already established in season 1 that he wishes he had more money like the Graysons, but his plot really got on my nerves in season 2. All he does is complaining and make a mess. Seems Charlotte's influence has been bigger than I thought. I know the world works on money, but there are plenty ways to earn money in the right way. He could have started again to work at the bar and get paid by Jack. Or he could have found another job after school. Many teenagers in Germany work in the summertime when we have those long school holidays or before and after school days. It is not easy or fun, and you cannot make that much money, but it would have been nice pocket money to spend on anything he wants. His dreams about a motorcycle and his own flat with Charlotte are just so out of reality. Again, I assume with Charlotte's and Declan's storyline they had some kind of teaching a lesson mode. They wanted to show younger viewers what they should not do and how they should not behave. For me, the outcomes of these storylines were just too predictable to be entertaining. About Jack's sentence, no matter what she did, she is still Amanda. That summons everything up, even his relationship towards Emily in season 3 and 4, and why he cannot let go of her. Jack is always willing to forgive Amanda everything because he sees still this idolized version of her from his childhood. That will be always something what I regard as truly romantic but also truly problematic. How can their relationship mature and become real when he still has this idolized version of her in his mind? In reality and daily life with all its problems, Amanda aka Emily cannot fulfill those high expectations and has to disappoint him. I hope that he truly can forgive her in the future and see her real good sides and character traits, not only the innocent child that has been betrayed and robbed of her happy childhood. But in the same way Amanda has to work on herself. They both have a long journey to heal before them after the show has ended. About Declan's little mind game here, it was fun to hear about how Jack could find a way out of this deadlocked situation. At this time when Aiden is not in the picture, he could have had the chance to ditch Fauxmanda and take a chance with Emily. I doubt that they both would have had a healthy and happy relationship since Emily is still lying to him and still works for her revenge agenda. But they could have explored that, too. In the end, I am happy how everything turned out for these two pairings in season 2. Emily got her soulmate in Aiden, who understood her mission and was willing to do anything for her. Jack and Amanda found their own little happiness with baby Carl. Besides, I always knew that Carl was his baby. They made Fauxmanda a killer and a liar before, but they would not ruin her reputation in that way. 'Cause if she had really screwed him over this big, they would have harmed their legacy as well. Spoiler alert, and her death in the midst of this season would have appeared like some kind of punishment for her crimes instead of a tragic loss. So she had to be not the perfect wife and mother, but a lovable and caring woman with flaws. Back to Emily and Charlotte. I like that she brings Charlotte and Fauxmanda together. I always thought that this was genuinely selfless of her, stepping aside and letting Charlotte bound with her fake sister so that she could have someone to cling to. Only now I realize that Emily is plotting here, too. Charlotte tells her that she and her mother plan to leave the country. Emily cannot allow this, not only because Charlotte is her sister and she wants her near. Victoria is her endgame and the most important target. So she cannot let Victoria slip through her fingers. What could be a solution for that? She gives Charlotte the perfect reason for wanting to stay around. She becomes an aunt. Emily knew that Charlotte was eager to get closer to Amanda to get answers about their father and her own heritage. Using these needs and unresolved feelings of Charlotte towards Amanda in the way to keep her and Victoria near was in the same way ruthless and manipulative. Though I still feel sorrow for her when Emily looks at the two. Fauxmanda seems to get everything Emily secretly wants, a normal life with a family, Jack, and on top a relationship with her sister. And it is again Amanda's theme that makes this scene so heartbreaking. About Fauxmanda's role in this, I do not like how Emily is using her in the first couple of episodes. It must have made a difference that Fauxmanda is pregnant now and has a family of her own to lose. But Emily does not take that into account and seems not to care at all. So Amanda's death seemed inevitable for me. First, they had no other way out for Jack since he was in too deep with Fauxmanda and baby Carl. And second, Fauxmanda did know too much about the conspiracy and was already too involved in Emily's revenge agenda. She got already on Victoria's radar, and it was just a matter of time till Conrad would pursue her as well. And Emily had definitely not the time to watch Amanda's every move in order to protect her. So she and Jack were very much on their own. About Victoria and Charlotte, their storyline is also tricky for me. I enjoyed that Victoria was using her as well as Emily did. Shows again the similarity in their character. But in contrast to the plot in Season 4, I did not enjoy how it was played out. Victoria just caring for money to get herself out of this helpless situation in her hideout at the cabin, and her putting all the weight of her problems on Charlotte's shoulders was not fair. That girl just turned 18 and in the States is not even full-aged. Victoria surely could have found another way to get money. After all, she has all the time in the world to think about in her little homemade imprisonment. By the way, she plays right into Emily's hands to drive a wedge between Victoria and her daughter. Emily has nothing more to do than to react to everything Charlotte tells her. Another side view: what I really enjoyed this season, that they were a little more playful and funny. Not only Nolan gets his funny lines, Conrad and Victoria are joking, too. That Victoria assumes here Daniel and Emily are going to be parents was just hilarious. I think that would have been the one thing that made Vicky's day even the worst day in her life since David got arrested. About the complicated relationship between Emily, Charlotte and Victoria. I love that they used Emily's quest for her mother as some kind of a theme for the first half of the season. I completely dislike how they pulled this off, but it was an intriguing idea, since in the flashback episode we see how bad the relationship with Victoria and her mother was. This season is really about motherhood. First we have Emily's troubled mother, who is a victim of her disease and therefore cannot be a good mother to Amanda. The recovered memory of her is leaving Emily with even bigger scars than the loss of her father. Second, we have Victoria and her really bad behavior towards her children that maybe derives from her mother, who was a very disturbing role model for her. And last but not least, we have the soon-to-be mother Fauxmanda, who tries to make it better. And there is also this layer that Victoria may become the mother-in-law of Emily when she marries Daniel. Something they never quite explored but just hinted at. It is a twisted mirror of her role as little Amanda's potential stepmother. In the same way as she denies becoming Emily's mother-in-law, she was refusing to acknowledge the fact that she was becoming Amanda's stepmother when she married David. About Nolan and Padma. From the beginning there was something that felt not right here. She was just too perfect, very much like Emily. A beautiful, funny woman who is smart and completely innocent as well. And coming out of nowhere. I always assumed there was more to the story here. But let's not jump forward. I still like her sweet and just beautiful character. Seldomly in Revenge, Padma is in the same way beautiful, judging from her outward appearances as her inner character. Though many do not like that they made Nolan date woman, too. I loved the fact that was a guy that could not be put in a box. On the web I found the joke that Nolan got engaged with woman in seasons with straight numbers, no pun intended. Which is not exactly true, because at the beginning of season 1 he was pursuing Ashley as well. Spoiler alert, and in season 4 he was married to Louise but also had a relationship with Tony. So besides Victoria with all her men, Nolan was maybe the most busy character in Revenge regarding his sex life. And he himself told Tyler in season 1 that he feels attracted to both sexes, woman and man. So I see here no problem, and it gave Nolan's character more ground that he had a complicated personal life. The only thing I dislike of Padma's character in retrospect is her origin. Revenge has really some issues with prejudices and diversity. I talked about the role of black characters before regarding Ashley and Emily's foster brother, which will be introduced in this season. With Padma they do it again. Revenge takes the easy way in using prejudices in people's head. Padma is from Indian heritage because Indians are believed to be more skilled with computers and technology as Americans or Europeans. So she is the perfect candidate for a computer firm like NolCorp. I doubt that the showrunners and writers were aware of that prejudice, they just did not thought about it. I recently stumbled about an interview with show creator Mike Kelly about the 10th anniversary of Revenge in 2021. And he admitted that at this stage of his career he did not think about these things. In his mind the Graysons and their environment were just these rich and white people. But he regrets that he never thought about including a more diverse cast. And in the end apologizes for not having included another perspective on Black or Asian people as well. It is the same with some jokes in 80s and 90s shows, these things do not age well. It is pop culture, so for me that is not a big deal and no reason to not enjoy these kinds of show. However, I think you have to be aware of those things because they are still used as propaganda. Even Harry Potter has some Jewish prejudices in it, as I learned in a documentary about anti-Semitism. So the more you are aware of these kind of subliminally propaganda, the more ineffective it gets. Another interesting thing about Season 2 was that he in fact wanted to reduce the number of episodes. He wanted to make a season with only 15 episodes or even less, and stated that he felt exhausted and was driven by the network. Now I can see why this season always felt rushed and scrappy. Anyway, I think he was right. Revenge could have been a better show. Even though it is sad that there would have been less episodes to rewatch. But for Season 2 I would not mind if they had cut out some of the stuff. And a little more diversity and realistic storytelling about problems regarding outsiders in our society that are not white would have not hurt. But back to the show. There are 3 things I love in this particular scene. First, that Padma is really bending Nolan's ears and oversteps her competencies. Second, Nolan totally failing in playing the boss because he is immediately amazed by her. And last but not least, that he is still not wearing pants. About Aiden. I loved seeing him back and even better in a suit. Really fits him more than Daniel, who is looking far better with a vest or in a casual sweater. But with Aiden they really played the British card from the beginning. Good for me, as I am job-wise very Anglophile. Though I did not like these overlapping revenge plots with Daniel, Aiden and the Initiative. I really enjoyed Aiden as some kind of Trojan horse in Grayson Global. Though I must admit that I would like to have the Initiative plot dropped immediately, and explore Grayson Global more detailed as well as their business practices, since I assume that would have been a more thrilling and relevant plot since the bank crisis was not that far behind as the show was released. About Daniel storming in that business meeting at Grayson Global. I still cannot decide if Joshua Bowman intended to play Daniel in this way, or if it just turned out that way by accident. If he intended to show him weak, out of control and slave to his immediate emotions, then he did a really great job. Cause every time when Daniel tries to stand up against his parents or later the Initiative, he appears out of his league. Anyway, I like that he stands up for Charlotte and for what he thinks is right for once. I only wish they had explored this side of Daniel more. Spoiler alert, not only short before his death in Season 4. About Conrad and Victoria. This whole sequence was just hilarious. First of all, I was glad that they ditched the cabin plot and this scam of Victoria being dead so quickly. And second, their intercourse was just so funny. Though the whole plot was some kind of pointless and not even the slightest realistic, I enjoy watching it every time. From Conrad's way to get in touch on phone with the rude and impatient question, "Who is this?" to the scene in which Victoria dares him to hit her. I also always enjoy when Victoria is threatening him. She really has a frightening side and I do not want to be on her bad side, as Emily put it in words in the pilot. When I see this, I think I have to make a video with funny quotes and scenes of the Graysons. Cause they were actually very funny in Season 2. Maybe I make one at the end of my pilot talk with the final episode of Season 2. The scenes with these two actors have always a smoothness look and the perfect speed. Though as a pair they are very dysfunctional, I love how the two actors work together. About Nolan and Padma eating together. Though I do not like the insignificant and dull plot here, I love the scenery. This little restaurant at the promenade really gives you the feeling of vacation and summer holidays. I must admit that since I do not live near a beach and in a city, I am pretty much jealous of Emily and Nolan living in this perfect holiday environment. By the way, I love Nolan's shirts and suits this season. The bold colors and maritime theme really made him more stylish and fit perfectly to his environment. About Charlotte wanting to move in with Emily and Nolan and Fauxmanda actually staying at her beach house. Funny that even though Emily's beach house is the headquarters of all her revenge activities, it becomes some kind of a homeless center at the beginning of season 2. First, Nolan moves in and makes himself more than comfortable, and then her sisters Charlotte and Fauxmanda want to move in too. I am not quite sure if Emily had even that much space to offer everyone a room. After all, the beach house seems to be small and cozy with only one guest room. Anyway, I love that Nolan and Fauxmanda at least know all about her revenge agenda, and so she has not to be careful to hide anything from them, as it would have been the issue with Charlotte and Daniel. And even better, Nolan and Fauxmanda can be of use for her when they help her, even if it is just to talk things through with the two. About Conrad's act finding his kidnapped wife. Again, Conrad was very lucky with how this turned out. Everything felt into his favor. He got his true love Victoria back and had the chance to bind her even stronger on his side. Just because of the common threat they faced with the Initiative and Gordon Murphy. And he had a totally firm explanation why he needed all this money, to get Victoria free. Though there are many holes in this story, as good children, Charlotte and Daniel cannot say anything against him. At least in the public they would appear ungrateful if they tried to. About Nolan's failure. I know this was huge. But if you think about it, what could Emily have possibly done to stop this from happening? Would it have been a real difference if she had known about this sooner? Okay, Nolan was on duty and Emily trusted him to watch Victoria's every move. But as we saw in an earlier scene, she could watch the stream on her phone as well. So as a control freak, why did Emily not made a quick peek every half an hour? And to Nolan's defense, is his private life and the company he owns not more important for him than Emily's revenge agenda? I know he always wanted to be part of this, but not in the same amount as Emily, who has her whole life on hold for this. I always loved this conflict, for which they never found a real solution till the end. Very much like the question about work-life balance today, so very real. About Daniel again. Though it makes him look like a complete fool again, I like this, some kind of running gag that Daniel is always the last to know. Again, he gets only parts of the story and is the last to get involved. Even worse now, it is his little sister, who knows the full story and lies to him as well. About this scene with Victoria and Charlotte. Again, I do not like the whole plot behind this. But I like how Victoria makes it clear how close she is with Charlotte again. She immediately takes her hand and Charlotte stands very much like a statement behind her throne. And they make it bluntly clear that the war between these two women are far from over. Both try to use Charlotte as a pawn. Victoria wants to make a statement that Emily stays out of reach of both her children, Daniel and Charlotte. And Emily is using her contact as Charlotte and her problems to get closer to Daniel. I think Victoria is already seeing, or at least sensing, this tactic of Emily. She tries shoot the bolt before Emily can put some foot into the door of Grayson Manor again. It is funny how unattached I feel to Emily and Daniel in season 2. In season 1, especially with the proposal and during Daniel's trial, they got me rooting for them. But with Aiden around and Daniel appearing that unpleasant and weak, I really did not like the idea that they would reunite. And instead of the lies and cheating on Emily's side in season 2, I did not feel sorry for Daniel in the same amount as in season 3 and 4. Even though Daniel was really bad in season 3, maybe because he was shown so weak he had not that much weight for me as a character. On some level, one have very much sympathy for him because he reminds me a lot of my older brother, who had to deal with alcoholic issues as well, and he is so very soft and caring when it comes to friends and family. Like Emily said about Daniel, just a good guy who tries to find his way through life. Very much like the essence of Daniel in season 4. He tries to be a better man. About the last scene, as much as I hate to admit it, but as she said she would not be alone and sends Nolan away, I was hoping she meant Aiden. I know their relationship was very much in the past and they had not introduced all the facts around him, but I was thrilled to see them together from the first moment. And I must admit that I did not expect that they actually did get rid of the white-haired man so soon. Gordon Murphy was just such a compelling adversary of Emily, and I would like to have seen more of his backstory with Amanda's mother. Would have been cool to see him talk with Emily face to face about Kara and his relationship to her. Cause this part of the story was really thrilling and had much potential. It was an elegant way to keep Kara Clarke alive cause he had the knowledge and the skills to protect her. The fact that Victoria wanted to kill her was not plausible for me, even though David told her he wanted the divorce to remarry. Kara Clarke was at the time an inmate of a mental institution and surely diagnosed with psychosis, so who would have believed her? They could have easily spun a story that Kara heard about the scandal around her husband and all that she was talking about were delusions she herself made up. Victoria and Conrad might not even had to bribe the doctors cause it would have made perfect sense for them to think so. It is common behavior of psychotic patients to spin their own conspiracy theory and find themselves in the center of the conspiracy. By the way, I liked the face-off between Victoria and Kara, made me really look forward for more scenes with the two. But what I still not understand is why Kara did not reach out to her daughter. When she was in hiding unprotected by Gordon, could she not make an attempt to keep her daughter with her? Did she fear to get in danger when anyone found out about her connection to David and their daughter Amanda? Or was it the guilt and fear that she herself could be a danger for her daughter? Anyway, we were left with many unanswered questions. And I am still furious about the fact that we never saw her coming back even for the finale in season 4. About the fall of Gordon Murphy, I understand why Victoria and Conrad frame him and try to get rid of him and the initiative, but what I do not understand is Murphy's agenda here. It is reasonable to turn to Emily for the recording because he knows since season 1 that Emily is stalking the Graysons via camera. But what does he has to gain with attacking Emily? Was it to make sure she does not screw him over like Victoria did? Or did he try to cut a loose end as he was surely used to do? Or was it some sick kind of way to protect Kara Clarke from getting found? Anyway, I do not like that they killed him off that quick. Though I really enjoy Aiden's hero moment here. It was the first of many times that he was there when Emily needed him the most. So I was head over heels and shipped him from this moment on. In the end, this was the first episode of season 2 for which I have mixed feelings. And there are many to come who have good and sadly more bad parts in it.